Thanks for joining us on today's Retirement. I'm Mindy Mizell, joined by Sherman Huff, the CEO of Spanish Cove Retirement Village. Thanks for joining us here.
It's good to be with you, Mindy.
Well, I understand you're talking about, are you ready to retire? And that's a good question, but how do you answer that? I know you've got a recent report out by MetLife. It's a study. So how do you answer that in light of this report, and what did it show?
Well, it's very interesting, and probably it's more interesting to me because I'm kind of approaching that age where I'm beginning to think about retirement in the next 3 to 4 years. And, you know, a lot of times we just think about financial. We were talking about that just before we go on there, and that's a very important part that we'll talk about probably next week. But MetLife did a study, and they said there's really 15 tasks that a person needs to complete before they actually retire. And then they broke those down into 5 major categories, one surprisingly being work, one being leisure and activities, one being relationships, one being financial, obviously, and then one planning for things that may or may not happen.
So I understand the first category you said was work.
Right.
But if you're retiring, what does work have to do with it?
Well, you know, that's an interesting thing, because as you look at, and again, Mindy, you're young, and probably when you look out there at retirement, you just think, oh, I'll just retire and play. I used to think that. As I get closer to it, it's kind of like, okay, what am I really going to do? And financially, what am I going to be able to do? So some people need to look that, are they going to need to still work some in retirement? Maybe not have the stress and the full workload that they have, but maybe to work some. A lot of people are already working physically demanding jobs, and as you age, you've got to say, okay, can I do that type of work after I retire, or do I need to be already looking at retraining myself to do something that would be less physically demanding? For me, you have to be in good health to do my job, but I feel like it's more of a brain drain, and sometimes I just want to do something where I don't have to make any decisions. Just tell me where to go and what to do, and I'll do that. So you've got to look at it for many different reasons on that in that regard. And I guess the other thing is, you've got to decide how you're going to retire. Are you going to just work right up to the day? Ideally, for me, what I'd like to do, and I don't know that I'll be able to, but many companies will allow you to, I would like to kind of transition out slowly, when my replacement comes in and stuff, maybe to the last year or so, to just work 2 or 3 days to be there if they need me, and then go into retirement. So you got to look at all those things and decide what it is you want to do.
Well, I like your plan. A little bit of work, a little bit of leisure and activities. But speaking of leisure and activities, I understand you said that's one of the categories. So what does that have to do with retirement too? Well,
again, you're going to have to look at what you're going to do, and I think it's just kind of a long category, and probably just get into that next week.
Well, sounds great. Well, thanks for joining us today, and I understand you're going to touch on this again next week.
That's right.
And if you have any questions for Sherman, here's his email. Just email him at sherman@news9.net.